Hi and welcome to episode 10 of Digital Source. I'm Carl Swann, the Solution Director here at Visualsoft, and today we're going to be unpacking the latest releases from Winter Editions. We're going to be talking about all the nice things that have been happening, but also distilling them down into what's actually useful for the UK retailers. Today I'm joined by two fantastic guests. I'll let them introduce themselves. Ben, yourself first.
Thanks for having me. I'm Ben. I'm a solution engineer at Shopify. I work in the new business large accounts team in EMEA, so helping some of the largest businesses who are evaluating Shopify figure out how they would deliver on their functional and technical requirements, and then guiding them through implementation to launch from a Shopify perspective.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for being here. Liam?
Yeah, I'm Liam, Director of Innovation at Visualsoft. So I've been working in sort of technical roles in the Shopify space for about 10 or 12 years or so. And now leading what we're doing at Visualsoft, which is building out sort of technology around the Shopify service offering. So apps and other integrated technologies.
Awesome, thank you. Let's start at the top then, because this release was packed. And the timing of this particular winter's release always comes around that Black Friday, Cyber Monday, then retailers are into Christmas and they're too busy to go through all of these updates. So what would be your main headline call out from this particular edition? Ben, start with yourself.
Sure. If you look at everything AI that was rolled into the platform, the biggest thing is Shopify is shifting away from a platform that you operate to a platform that operates alongside you, right? So if you look at all of the stuff that like Sidekick's capability around how it can now do things for you, draft things, make proactive recommendations with Sidekick Pulse, it's quite a monumental shift, and there's been obviously enormous focus and capability improvement around AI. So for me, that's like the biggest takeaway is that shift from platform that you operate to platform that operates with you.
That makes loads of sense. What about yourself?
Yeah, I was going to say, obviously, the big headline is just the extent of which Shopify are going in on AI. It's like not just putting some things out to be seen as doing AI, but really, really heavily investing and having sort of long-term vision around AI. I thought just to follow up with a sub-headline, because within all that, it wasn't all about AI. And I think there was a bit of a sub-headline of away from the standard on-site D2C, there's also a focus on the surrounding commerce of B2B stronger, POS and physical retail stronger, all that side. So I think, AI obviously steals the headlines, but surrounding that, I think the rest of commerce outside of just D2C and on-site was a big focus.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So take away like some of the buzzwords and the keywords, the AIs and stuff. Like you were saying earlier, the main key focus I found is that it's more power and enablement to the merchant, more assistance, more their own ability to be able to get the information they need without a third party, without a dev, or without having great foundational knowledge of Shopify or the ecosystem or their configuration. They've got access to that assistant and it's more power to them. They can build new sections, they can build apps, they can ask for reports. So empowering the merchant to do more themselves is the biggest takeaway that I've found.
Yeah, and laying the foundation for agentic commerce, right, and everything that's coming, because there is clearly a shift that is in progress. So Shopify, just like you said, helping merchants be ready for everything that's coming there. That is absolutely foundational and super important. I think also, like you touched on, unified commerce has never been more important than it is now, and it's almost a given. Like customers expect a unified commerce experience, and you'll see within the editions there's loads of stuff in there that just make Shopify a unified commerce delivery by default. So loads of new stuff in there as well outside of the AI capability. You're right.
Yeah, absolutely. Like unified commerce is something that's been attempted maybe 3-4 years ago. Then it became omni-channel because it wasn't properly unified. But I think the technology has always been around, or certainly what people perceive to be unified commerce has been around. But no one's actually been able to do it until Shopify have come along and made it so easy to pick it up and adopt it. And that's where true unified commerce comes in. And now is the position where people can pick it up very, very quickly, I think.
And I always run the risk of getting too into the weeds on stuff, probably partly because of my role. But I think one of the key factors there and the key strengths with Shopify is that with omnichannel, one of the challenges was always you still have siloed data and still have siloed information. And then through omnichannel capability, you're trying to stitch it all together again. Whereas Shopify, just out of the box, is a unified data model. Right, so everything's feeding into that one place, and that continues with like new sales channels around around agentic commerce and so on. That's all feeding as a sales channel into that same unified data model.
Absolutely.
And POS is an extension of Shopify. All of these moments where it's one model out of the box.
And then the scalability is just natural from there. As you scale and scale big, because it is so natively inherent to Shopify now, and there's no having to re-embellish any of the larger collections, then they will be the failure points. It just works, and it works scale as well. That's brilliant. As I said in the intro, the winter editions release is always around that Black Friday, Cyber Monday into Christmas. So the merchants don't have a lot of time to really get into the weeds and look at all these fantastic updates. What's your take on the separating the signal from the noise? Because again, another part is that as soon as it's released, all the agencies out there start producing LinkedIn content and loads of blogs, and that's just more noise. Yeah. So what's your take on how a normal retailer or a retailer can actually separate all that noise and make something useful out of it?
So I think that Shopify, each of these editions will address some like major things that over the years there's been big things to help people, help merchants sell internationally was a massive one, like with markets, theme customizing with sections everywhere, that sort of thing. But they're also really good at the noise. So 150 releases with a lot around some of the bigger things, sort of more for the headlines now, and will become more impactful in 6 months' time. So I don't know what the easy answer is, other than there's sort of 150 points where previously or with other platforms or other tech, there'll be like an old school change log, and it's like people reading through the change log trying to find out when things might help them. But Shopify made it easy to go through in one place. So I think probably the answer is just making sure you sort of dig through all of the 150 points. Some of the small bullet points might actually be the impactful parts immediately. And yeah, maybe working with an agency to understand them all fully or dig further into them in the platform.
Something you touched on earlier about, again, the sidekick. When I was reading through the editions, and it comes through with all the updates as you're scrolling through, and the really nice parallaxing scrolling thing it did, it's got a really nice hover feature of the things you can ask Sidekick to do. And one of them was a prompt for Sidekick that says, break down the latest editions in the context of my store. And because Sidekick's built into you know, and it knows what you're doing, how you're doing it, your configuration, and what you're selling, industry you're in, it can be very, very helpful on that. So that might be another suggestion as well.
The creative team and the engineering team make it's probably, I think it's arguably one of the best websites on the internet at the moment, right? It is an amazing experience, so quite fun to go through. All that being said, we're in a world now where actually one of AI's biggest strengths is helping you crunch information and digest information and summarize it in a way that's contextual to you very quickly. So you're right, absolutely. Yeah. Talk to Sidekick, who has broad context of your business, and help it unpick pick all the aspects. I think for me, the crunching through the noise thing, because there's a lot of hype, there's a lot of very strong and loud marketing, yes. It's always just that ruthless prioritization of, is this going to actually drive more revenue, or is it going to reduce operational costs? And if not, push it down, Yeah,
absolutely. That's one thing I'm always guilty for. I like the new shiny thing. That looks so cool, but then I never really realised, or judge, is that actually going to be useful in this context? I just like how cool it sounds. Okay, guys, let's ground this in outcomes, because that's what really matters. So what do you think are the key parts of this that impact revenue, average order value, and that kind of stuff for the retailer? What's your biggest takeaways on that side?
Yeah, I think, there's a bunch we could choose from, right? But specifically for the UK, stuff like Shop Pay Installments, the fact that you can turn on a buy now, pay later service with a tick box in your store, that's cool, and I think will have direct tangible conversion impact for businesses very quickly. Also, it's a little one, but Shop Pay personalized button. It now puts the last 4 digits of your card on the button that just reassures a user. And that transaction moment is such a high trust moment for a user. Anything that just increases trust slightly has really tangible, direct value.
Yeah, it's trust signals. When you have those little 4 digits on the Shop Pay button, it's they know me. I know it. I feel familiar with it, and it's just maybe a subconscious thing where you don't have that subconscious obstruction or that blocker to go and proceed with it. It's just natively, naturally. It knows me, and I'll click it because it's all there. I haven't got to put my details in. I'll just click and go. But it's not like Shop Pay. It's Shop Pay, but also it knows me in my context. But the installments thing, I think, is really, really good. Being able to turn it on with a button, because it used to be like Klarna or another service provider that before it got bundled in, it would be an extra app. Then you'd have to do all the messaging and build that into the theme. And then when they changed it, it would break it and you'd change the block on the theme again. But again, like just press a button and it's there. And it's got the easy paying 3, but then it does the ability to have longer term payments at a little bit of a commission on top.
Yeah.
But I think it's fantastic. Yeah, that's really, really good. So any other things to note that would impact revenue, average order value, conversion rates on these things that would be buried away? Just little things like we just mentioned there. Anything else that you think will have an impact?
Similar to the padlock one that we did a lot of testing around was like Shop Pay or Apple Pay on PDP rather than like cart and getting through to checkout. And there's obviously like pros and cons per brand. But like reducing the amount of items in cart because you're buying straight from PDP, but that similarly used to have a high impact on, if the brand was trainers or something where generally somebody was buying one item, that got them straight through to ordering much quicker. So that had a good, But anyway,
I suppose that's now increasingly offset as well with upsell cross-sell in checkout, which bringing it back to this Editions, you can now do with Shopify Plus per market checkout customizations and checkout internationalization. So having regional specific upsell cross-sell could help support and strengthen conversion rate uplift for on PDP Shop Pay button, but with the upsell cross-sell in the checkout to still help protect that AOV.
So Liam, anything else you can think of that'll have a commercial impact?
So I had one more, but it's slightly niche in how much commercial impact. But I think one of the areas that Shopify seems to have put a lot of effort in is Shop app and pushing like what's functionality on there and how a brand can personalize their own sort of brand presence on the app. And it feels like, again, when we're talking about multi-channel or buying from agentic and buying from a bigger range of channels, it feels like pound for pound for a merchant, it's probably a good area to spend a bit of time just making sure it's the presence on the Shop app is as powerful as it can be. And you said, what was the usage? I didn't know it, but you had some stats on the usage.
Globally, it's over 200 million users.
Yeah.
So it's now it's an enormous customer base. It's growing rapidly in the UK.
Feels like it's been pushed hard from Shopify's side, both marketing wise and functionality wise.
Yeah, and I think it is becoming and will increasingly become a very, very valuable acquisition channel for businesses. Like you said, like the customer acquisition cost, I suppose. It's key there and could be very valuable for businesses.
Yeah, it's an opportunity for free organic eyes on your brand. And then like the introduction of Shop Minis to I think bring more engagement for people in there. So I think historically the app was more for just managing orders and looking at transactions and shipping and that sort of thing. Whereas like introduction to Shop Minis will increase time spent in the Shop app. It's building on the extensibility of Shopify where people can start building more functionality for customers to stay on the Shop app.
Yeah, I think the Shop app in general is a very underutilized tool by a lot of merchants. It's not something that I ever hear a lot of focus upon, and it's free. It's part of it. You can inherently have it, all your products be surfaced from that app, and I think it could be a very good little bit of advice to some of our merchants.
I would say, just a gut feeling, probably 9 out of 10 merchants I speak to haven't done anything on Shop app, and you could probably spend a few hours just to optimize your brand's presence, it's not time wasted, at least.
In the world of personalization never being more powerful than it is now, right? It also means that your products, if you build something niche, or if you're delivering a niche product, you are never more discoverable than you are now, in a way.
Yeah, true.
So making sure that you are everywhere that your customers are, which is probably on shop, makes a lot of sense. A core capability that we always look to and always will look to deliver is enable our merchants to be everywhere their customers are. So everything that we build is through that lens, right? Which is why it's why we've gone so all in on agentic commerce and enabling that capability, because we know it is an area where customers are going to be. They are now, and they increasingly will be in the future.
Moving away from AI, which is the obvious direction of travel for Shopify at the moment, what other things do you think are impacting the direction? What things should we focus on now, short term, long term? What are those elements that you're thinking about?
I mean, there's all sorts, but one of the ones I think is worth just briefly touching on is the multi-store analytics capability, which, as you'll well know, historically, internationalization or multi-brand on Shopify has been delivered through expansion stores, and over the last few years there's been an enormous change and shift in single store capability, of which some of it has, some additional stuff was rolled out in Editions as well. Multi-store analytics will further help businesses who are still running on expansion stores, and that, I think increasingly there are fewer reasons why businesses would need to do that, especially around internationalization, but we still definitely see it around, and it's the right setup for businesses if you're regionalized operationally, or if you're running multiple brands. And this aggregated analytics piece will mean that as a headquarters and as a unified team across multiple brands, you can see everything wrap up into one.
That's brilliant. Yeah, rather than having to hop in and out of different admins all the time, combine all those pieces of data into an external spreadsheet or data cube, and then have to run analytics. It's all built in as standard now, isn't it? Yeah,
exactly. So it's almost in the analytics view, you can just toggle and aggregate everything, or then toggle into individual stores all within your one.
I've seen quite a bit with probably franchising. Still, like one of the reasons still where multi-store rather than a single store view would be used. Like that sort of thing would be really useful for them, or just international brands that haven't migrated to a single store, which has become, I think was it the last editions where the multi-entity and the payouts potentially were. That was probably the last major one that was like an actual concrete blocker for a lot of brands. So yeah, definitely seen more and more move to a single store view, but yeah, there's still a lot of use cases where that analytics helps.
This edition's the big one, was markets for retail. So actually that's quite a big shift in terms of businesses delivering with POS as well, now being able to have individual pricing catalogs for individual retail locations all within the same store.
So let's talk bricks and clicks, online, offline. So we said at the very top that unified commerce is here. It's very, very easy to adopt for merchants, but a lot of the people haven't managed to get their head around it properly or implement it as seamlessly as what it can be available. So what in this latest release do you feel that is making this a bit of a no-brainer and that really enables merchants to pick this up easier?
I think there's quite a bit in the bricks and clicks side, and it's a big focus for us, obviously, and a lot of the merchants we're working with. I think one of the major ones, you already touched on markets for retail, which was a big one in terms of price lists and all that sort of thing, making it more flexible for multiple stores or localization. I think hardware, the focus on hardware is a big one. So it feels like there's a lot bigger push and focus on increasing the range of hardware and what's available. I think the hub in particular, I don't know your thoughts on it, but the hub in particular opens up more connectivity to a range of hardware, or a lot more flexibility for merchants doing physical retail. So customizing the sort of POS experience, so a bit like the theme customizer, or all of that applying to POS. So smart grids dynamic across stores. So merchants that have 100 stores, and they might have different setups within each store where the smart grid needs to be slightly different. So dynamic smart grids across them, and personalizing the customer facing side at POS, or receipts, I think, as well is in there. So yeah, all of that sort of thing, just to extend, almost just to bring the online customization functionality onto the POS offering as well, was really strong.
Like, it's a very clear statement of intent. It's going to be an enormous, as more and more hardware opens out to make it connectable via the POS hub. It's going to be really, really helpful for a lot of businesses looking to adopt Shopify POS and expand their store operations. And the other thing I thought was worth touching on is there've been a few IMS capability additions additions in additions. So if you think of like POS quick count, and actually since as well, within POS, since Editions, we've launched within POS store transfer capability. So all of these moments where we're just helping businesses be able to operate more and more directly within Shopify, manage more and more operational capability, particularly around inventory, and all from the retail software as well, the like POS specific, rather than having to chop and change between Shopify admin and Shopify POS.
Yeah. I think the subscriptions functionality as well was rolled out to POS, which is another big one. And again, that unified side where just natively subscriptions can work similar to online and offline. I think just in general, the last 18, 24 months of Shopify in general has been becoming more extensible. So on-site, extensibility at checkout and accounts, and the whole thing's been about extensibility. And then the POS, and it wasn't all in this release, but the POS extensibility is a big piece of that, and the POS side's definitely improved because of that. That's allowed us to build, so we're building like a lot of technology around the POS side because of these things becoming available. So yeah, I think that's definitely strengthened around that.
Yeah, a lot of really, really good points. And the one thing that stood out to me out of all of that as well is the extensibility, how that's been as a concept passed down from the online to the retail side. That then allows for proper unified. Because without the extensibility, there could be a little bit of an argument where true unified of loyalty schemes and the ability for wishlist to regenerate on the front end in real life may not be possible without the ability to extend it. So now it's all part of something that's core to Shopify. Then unified commerce is absolutely something that's available right now.
Yeah, agreed.
And we're now really seeing the extensibility philosophy play out in how, like, what the value it drives for businesses. Because like, we'll all remember the Shopify's checkout overhaul where we rebuilt a lot and moved to an extensibility model away from like previous ways of customizing the checkout. Very important, but also very painful in many ways, that migration.
That was a tricky period.
Yeah, right. But we're really now seeing the value. Like checkout is absolutely fundamental and has to be bomb-proof.
Yeah.
And the extensibility model protects that in a really profound way, which is why I think it works really well with POS as well, because you can't have scenarios where your retail software goes down because of a customization, or you need to really protect against that. And the extensibility model puts really strong guardrails in place to protect your core purchase journey in store.
Yeah, and there's a really good quote from Toby, quite relevant to what you just said there. It's like, the success of Shopify today isn't based on decisions that were made last week. These were core fundamental decisions we made 10 years ago, and now they're coming to fruition. So that whole checkout move, and I remember the headaches of handling that, and the complaints and all the work and the overtime. But like you just said, it's allowed us to now scale properly and to implement something that's far more robust. And it really is paying dividends from a decision that was made, not yesterday, not last week, but years ago.
Yeah.
And it's now implemented and bearing fruit. Promotions and pricing are always under the microscope, especially with margin pressure. So are there any updates that have been released on this that will help retailers be considerate of that?
We've already touched on it a bit, but worth drilling into more. So one is automatic discounts by customer segment, which I think is quite exciting in terms of what it will now enable businesses to do from a granular discounting capability. And I suppose the theme here is, like, with margin pressure, as you've talked about, we just need to get smarter at discounting, right? And being able to automatically segment a customer and provide them a discount based on their segment just gives you more granular control. We've also added in capability around product category segmentation, so enabling you to segment a customer based on the product category affinity, which again is just another moment of getting smarter. Add in the sidekick skill that we've talked about already as well around discount strategy, and suddenly that unlocks the ability for you to more granularly analyze your discounting strategy currently and adapt it as at the same time as having more flexibility and more autonomy to deliver complex discounting strategies with the native Shopify discounting module and straight out of the box.
Way more powerful than it says on the headline, isn't it? When you start thinking about how I'd implement that for my merchants, or even asking Sidekick, can you do this? And it has the ability to create these things with the new enhancements in such a way, in such a granular way. That's very, very, I think, really powerful. And like you said, exciting. I think that's a really good shout.
Yeah. And an example, customer hits a lifetime spend of X, automatically segment them in this way and provide them with this automatic discount to continue to drive lifetime value. Well, that used to be more complicated to do, whereas now you can do it with configuration and no sort of customization, I suppose. And with a properly identified customer, you can be so much more granular and specific on personalization, right? Whereas when they're not identified and you're making assumptions based on affinity and any information you may be getting from GA or that kind of thing, it's a lot harder to personalize.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of loyalty strategies as well, it opens up massive opportunities. But yeah, in the sort of smarter discounting and margin pressures, it's almost that strategy of having customers logged in and then trying to collect in a nice way, collect more data about them so you can be smarter, has a big impact.
It also feeds back to what we talked about with like the growth of Shop as a customer. Put your email address on a shop in the account area or in the checkout of a Shopify store you've never shopped on before, but because that store is using Shopify payments and has Shop Pay, and because I'm a customer who is registered and provided my information to Shop Pay, you can authenticate that way. So it really opens up customer recognition significantly.
Yeah, that's a really good point. When you ask about promotion and thinking about promotions and discounts, in the release of Editions that we've just been discussing, one of the things you wouldn't naturally associate that with is making sure the customer's logged in. So being able to log in on social, like you said, but also the passkey stuff with fingerprint and face recognition to be able to log in that they released this time out. That's so key to being able to drive those strategies, that when I'm saying promotions, we're thinking about those tools, but getting to be able to identify the customer by these two really cool little things that, again, gone under the radar. That's a really good shout.
I think it's just, removing as much friction as possible in any way to get the customer logged in. Because, when they're logged in and browsing the site, there's, a lot more personalization options, a lot more smarter, strategic things you can do around discounting.
Yeah, absolutely.
And roll that into retail as well, where we know that partly because of Shop Pay's identification capability, retailers on Shopify POS achieve an average known customer rate of 70% in store, which is very different to what the retail UK average is. If you wrap all of that in with the new automatic discounting capability, segmentation and so on, it's very powerful for businesses.
Yeah. Okay, guys, we've obviously got to talk about the big buzzword in the room, AI, especially with Sidekick evolving so much. So where do you feel that AI and the latest releases can genuinely help retailers save time and be more efficient and be more informed? And where do you advise people to still be a bit more cautious? I'll throw to you first, Liam.
Yeah, my favourite topic. I think there's almost like two big strands of AI within all these releases. So there's sort of the agentic UCP, which sort of ties in direction of travel on that side, and then the other side, which is Shopify bringing out new ways in which merchants can just utilize AI without really having to know too much of the technicalities, just to be more efficient and streamline things. So that in that side, I would include like Sidekick, SimGym. So to start with Sidekick in particular, I think probably it's gone from sort of novelty-ish, like helpful to answer a few things to now being actually super powerful on, like I use it and the merchants use it a lot on reporting. Like one of my favorite things is like flow, building out flows, or help building out utilizing Shopify Flow.
I think the on Sidekick in particular, this goes back to the whole, like what we talked about earlier with like build a muscle now of tinkering with it. It is already adding enormous value for businesses. It's only going to get better. It's shifting and has shifted from information, great at support documentation, to drafting things for you and building things out for you. And that will just continue. My caution, which was one of the questions, is that, like, and this goes right into our philosophy about AI, is that this is a human capability multiplier, not replacement. So like all things AI, treat it as draft. Get it to draft you a flow. Amazing, right? Because suddenly we've got the ability to, via natural language, build very complex customization into a Shopify store. Don't press go without reviewing it yourself.
Yeah, that's fair.
And it's the same with like if you're going to get it to build you a custom app, if you're going to make get it to do a front end tweak to you,
changes,
right?
Things,
Like we should be leveraging it to get to that 80%, 90% mark, whatever the percentage is, quickly and more efficiently, and then we should have human expert review before pressing go.
I think again some of the headline bits around it were the theme changes and ask it to change colors or add something to the front end of the theme, or app development. That'd probably be way down my list immediately of how merchants should be using it, or how I would use it, or just efficiency. Like I think there's so much more to it in terms of insight on how discount, if we go back to discount codes, and insight on how successful or what products certain discount codes have been using, or that sort of thing, strategic things around how discounts are being used, or building drafts of Shopify flows which can be tested. The apps, like suggesting the apps, I think is a big one.
So I was going to say that, because it's naturally, you said about caution and things to be aware of for caution. I think the way that Sidekick interacts with merchants is quite cautious by design, because I've seen a merchant use it to say, build me this fantastic app that will do these things. And it'll come back with, here's 3 apps that exist on the App Store already that you consider. Here's why it's good in your use case. Don't reinvent the wheel. Rather than just going, sure, boss, I'll make it. It's really, really good doing it. So, but cautious by design, I think it's really good that
I think the app sort of recommended, like the App Store, there's a lot of apps like full of good things across the App Store, but now it's like such a successful ecosystem that sometimes it's where do you start if you need certain functionality. But Sidekick's actually really powerful in making good, usually sort of here's 3 recommendations that fit what you're after, or you can give it a bit more context and it'll filter it down. But I think that side's really strong in particular.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've seen that in action and it's fantastic.
I'm excited to see how businesses roll out like the skills and shared prompt stuff as well. Just like building the muscle within the team and sharing, I mean, even across businesses, but certainly within a merchant's business, like key capabilities, merchant-specific skills that are specific to your business, all those kind of things, I think will really increase the value of it for a particular business.
Okay, so an important factor here in current times is that e-commerce teams are being asked to do lots more with a lot less, I suppose. So which updates from this latest round do you feel that are genuinely helping merchants and retailers become more efficient without adding complexity and cost?
A key one, we've touched on it a lot, but a lot of the improvements in Sidekick are definitely worth referencing. And this also goes back to just like the building the muscle stuff that we've talked about in detail. I think AI is currently strongest in automating parts of your day-to-day workflows. And a lot of that is now out of the box with Sidekick. In Shopify, with like the ability, like we've talked about it, but the ability to build out a Shopify flow, and Sidekick's multi-step reasoning capability, and maybe Sidekick Pulse being able to surface some like quick wins for you, and Sidekick being able to pull out reports for you, and all these kind of moments. It just I think that the thing for teams to think about is, like, we're seeing businesses report back that when they just build it into their day-to-day workflow, that one of the first things they do is go to Sidekick and figure out what aspects of this can be automated, what aspects of this can Sidekick already handle. They're the wins. It's the incremental little things that stack up into enormous efficiencies over a long term.
Yeah, awesome. Makes loads of sense.
Yeah, I had a couple, but I mean, I think it's almost Shopify's like mantra from the beginning, or like the benefit of Shopify from the early days is that reduced teams can work effectively and focus on what's actually really impactful, marketing, blah, blah, blah. So I think over the years, I've definitely seen more and more just smaller ecom teams doing really well from Shopify in general. But I think two in particular have improved from this editions are Shopify Flow, you've just touched on. So the connection with Sidekick again helps, but there's just been improvements in general. So like being able to preview the outputs from a flow before you put it live, or just much easier to see what you're expecting at the end. The customizer side is like the actual editing of flows has become a lot easier. I think it's always been potentially really powerful, but slightly too technical a lot of the time for merchants, which I'd still like to see improve, like just become a bit more user friendly from a merchant point of view. But it's got a lot more powerful, and I think that now utilizing flows can be like really impact efficiencies or like a repeatable task for a team. The second one I had was rollouts. It's become really common to do big product launches or big flash sales sort of things, and you know, all that side promotion wise, but probably difficult to, and I've known teams be in the office at midnight because they're doing a midnight launch of something.
Yeah,
and even though there was like launch pad, so you could sort of do theme scheduling, but you couldn't do campaigns and you couldn't do other things that need to be timed with it across the site. So I think rollouts to achieve like scheduled sale launches and scheduled promotion campaigns starting will actually be like a massive one that at certain times will not just increase efficiency, but just stop teams having to sort of all gather at midnight to launch something.
Yeah, what a wonderful.
Which people will be happy about.
Yeah, for sure. There are two aspects to it. One is, like you've touched on, the content scheduling, like saving that whole, I need to be in the office at midnight because I've got to press a green button, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And just more granularity on content scheduling, which has been complex for a while and will get a lot more straightforward. Like think internationalization, content schedule, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But then there's also the aspect of traffic splitting and what
I've
that
actually
unlocks.
almost the bigger part of it.
Well, I don't know. I mean, they're both super valuable, right? But traffic splitting, in terms of what that would enable with being able to test things, that's like what an enormous unlock to have native in the platform. Super valuable for businesses.
Yeah, so the key part of this then, when we're saying which releases have helped people be more efficient with smaller teams, it's Sidekick, it's the potential rollout coming out, it's the ability to create flows where you don't need a separate team to do it. It's all about being able to have access to reports. You don't have to have a reporting team and a reporting suite to help generate these things. There's loads of very key areas that compoundly make a massive impact in efficiency, and accuracy, I think, is really, really key as well.
Mm-hmm.
Again, guys, let's get practical. We spoke a lot about a lot of things, but let's give everyone our top take. We do one each. What are our top takeaways? Liam, you start.
Yeah, I think top things to pick up on from these editions. So I'm going to go for the agentic AI side, and it's probably the product data, like making sure your product data is complete and solid for this like growth into the agentic commerce side. Yeah. So things like, I mean, I've spoken with brands around this where still potentially using like old school Metafield apps where like all of your enriched data is off Shopify and pulled in. It's like things like that, like product schema, making sure all the schema data is like just as complete as it can be. Context around, just as much context in the product data as possible, and like just utilizing native metafields now because they're there to be used, and pull that will be pulled into the sort of product feeds. So
That's a really good shout, because when we start websites now and build them up, we're building them up in that way that is all agentic ready. For brands that have been on it for a very long time, there's a potential for their product data and their structure to not be as good as one that's just been straight off the shelf now.
Yeah, 100%.
That's a great shout.
So I think, that's maybe more for brands that have set up a couple of years ago, and maybe because, and there is some brands where it's metafields wise, is there a reason to switch from an old school metafields app and I manage all my product content in there because I'm set up and it's fine day to day? Whereas now it's like, there will be a commercial benefit to just getting it all into Shopify natively and making that switch.
Great shout. So your key takeaway is make sure that your product data is ready for AI, agentic commerce.
Correct.
Ben, what's yours?
My key takeaway is that every member of your team operating on Shopify should now be building Sidekick into their day-to-day workflows. For whatever you're doing, have a look at how Sidekick can augment and add to your efficiency. And that, yes, that will sometimes be building out customizations on the store and so on, but it will also be for operators who are just day-to-day reporting or trying to pull out information, understand what customers are doing on store, all those kind of things. There's enormous efficiencies to be had across a lot of the updates that we made.
Absolutely. I think we spoke to a hell of a lot of them through this entire show today. So yeah, good shout. So product readiness, agentic AI, Sidekick, everyone should be using it because that's the core. For mine's a bit more niche, bit of a particular use case. Specifically, bricks and clicks for retailers with physical stores. Unified commerce is really a thing now. It probably wasn't so much thing 12 months ago, but anyone that's got a retail store on Shopify utilizing POS, they should 100% double down on their strategy and implement the tools that are now available to them to provide that in-store and online experience to be completely unified. And there's so many more benefits to it. And you can increase and enhance the experience on both sides of it by using the tools that are now outside the box.
Yeah, I think the benefit of like the customer experience in store when you know who they are and preferences and that sort of thing. And then the benefit of reporting or just strategic decisions when you know all of your offline and online and other channels orders are all connected and customer data is all connected.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it's important.
Okay, so moving straight into looking ahead. So we just covered all this latest winter editions. We've got summer editions just around the corner.
Yeah.
Already. So what would you advise people to be aware of in terms of preparation for capitalizing on what we just discussed today and also being ready for the next round of 150 plus updates?
I was thinking about this. I think you have to ruthlessly prioritize because there is too much, a lot of which is irrelevant to you specifically as a business. Because if you implement nothing from Editions, you still have everything that Shopify was delivering for you for your business before. That's still all there. That's not going to change. So I suppose it's important to not like feel overwhelmed or whatever. At the same time, so ruthlessly prioritize. At the same time, we're in a position, like we said, where with AI, you can crunch data and assess things at a pace never before. So I'd almost be like, why not just have AI, whether that's Sidekick or tooling outside that assesses your business, understands your operational capability, reviews and compares everything that was launched in Editions and starts to just build out a matrix for you to identify quick wins and so on. And I think that as an exercise, which to be honest could be a couple of prompts in Sidekick or another tool to very quickly pull that out. That would be my how to get ready. Ruthlessly prioritize at the same time as leverage the fact that we can crunch loads of data really quickly.
Definitely for me, it's strategy first. Don't just go on to Editions, read through it all and try and make those things shoehorn into what I'm going to do. Like, that looks cool, I'll do it. Move away. Before you even look at anything to do with the Editions side of things, think about who you are, what you do, where you want to go, the things that you're being challenged with at the moment, and the blockers to where you want to be. And then in that fresh context, look at the things on Editions, ask Sidekick, prompt it, utilizing that thought train, and then be able to clearly prioritize the bits that will be impactful for your business. I think that wraps everything up. Thanks so much, guys. It was really amazing. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks. Enjoyed that.